Think about how your company talks about you. It could be a job title, department level, compensation band. This whole system that we've been in essentially for about 100 years now, ever since organizations started to start forming, is totally being dismantled right now. What I want to talk about today is a report that recently came out from the Institute of Corporate Productivity, or I4CP for short. And what they're really calling out is the shift from like job based to skill based organizations, and skills becoming kind of the operating system, not your title, not your department. What can you actually do? What do you bring to the table? And I think it's quite interesting because a very small percentage of companies are actually applying that. So there's a lot of talk about it, but only 12, 13% of organizations actually made the shift. And those companies that made the shift are actually outperforming companies that did not. And meaning that basically what they've done is they said, how do we actually use the skills that our people have, not the titles we hired them for, not the job description we hired them for. How do we actually bring out the skills that they have, whatever department they're in right now, whatever role they're in right now? What do we actually need them to do, and how can we uncover the skills that they already have, or how do we upskill them, reskill them for the job that we actually need them to do? And we see this happening in a lot of larger organizations, also like Unilever and others, where they have this internal mobility framework. So basically it's like an internal job board where you can go and apply to different departments in different regions in the world. And so when you can actually apply to be in those roles, obviously this is a little bit more easier when there's a large organization with multiple locations, geographies. And so there's a lot more roles that are open. And naturally they'll look internally usually before they look externally for candidates. So that's a little bit easy. But what about the smaller ones? And how can you actually navigate that space as an individual, as a professional? And so if you're already in a large organization that has this internal mobility, this internal positioning, that definitely take advantage of that. It's not optional anymore. You have to do it. It's how you're going to continue to grow and elevate in your current role, in your current career, especially if you want to stay with a company. So either you're going to have to maybe shift your role a little bit. Maybe you're going to need to take your role to a different department, maybe a different geography as well. But if that's already available option for you as an employee of your company, then I'll definitely take advantage of that. So here's my confession for the ambitious professional. So if you're like really trying to figure out how do you maintain your competitive edge, this one's for you. The next promotion is going to go to the person who's actually accumulating different skill sets and makes them visible for the manager, the leadership, and so on. So being able to actually pick up different skills and not being opposed to it, I'm still mind blown how many people I see in organizations really pushing back on additional training and so on, because like, well, it's just more of my time and I need to, and like, is the company going to pay for my time? Well, maybe, maybe not. But you know what else might happen? The company might not have a spot for you if you don't know how to use other skills. If you don't have other skills, if you don't use tools and technology that the company needs you to use. So if you're in that person that being offered opportunities to train, to upskill, to reskill, make sure you're not saying no because you feel like it's a waste of your time, because I promise you it's not. And whether it's with this organization or somewhere else, the more skills you add to your toolbox as a professional, those that are useful, obviously, right? The more competitive you're going to be in your profession. This mobility is not just good for organizations. So it's not like organizations are investing in you, and that's good for them, sure, but it's also good for individual growth, period. So how are you actually going to play the game in a way that works for you as a professional? Understand your actual skills, not your job description, not what you graduated with or anything that you've even done from a job title standpoint, but actually look at your skills. What can you do? At what level? You need to be able to actually articulate what is it that you can do through referencing to actual experience. And then you want to map the gaps. So basically you want to look at like 2-3 years ahead of time, maybe the projects you might be on, maybe things that are coming up in your company, and what skills do they require, right? Do you have those skills? Do they not have those skills? And then develop a roadmap to close the gap. The next thing you can do is also look at how do you actually take advantage of the internal mobility, right? Look at the opportunities that are available internally. And yes, it might take a little bit extra of your time outside your 9 to 5, but that's the game. If you want to play the game, that's the way to play it, honestly. So that's the confession. You got to play the game. You don't want to play the game, get out of the arena, but then don't complain when things don't happen to you or you find yourself without a job. Anyway, back to the mobility part. If you really want to gain that experience, look at cross-functionally, somewhere you can volunteer your skills, somewhere else you can learn within the company. Really try to stretch some of those assignments, look at different teams and offer the help. These are the opportunities that will help you build your resume for the world of skill-based employees. And then after that, you got some opportunities after you've done the audit of your skills. The final thing is to make your skills visible. I always, even if you have the best resume in the world, if nobody knows about you, you're invisible, it's irrelevant. So you want to make sure that you actually position yourself internally, networking with the right stakeholders to make sure that people know what you've been doing, where you've been putting in the work, what new skills you have learned, and so on. To make sure you're building those relationships parallel while gaining the skills. The career ladder is just going to look very different and you have to readjust. And I know it's hard because sometimes we get used to doing things a certain way, but you have to face the reality that the job market is changing. The way we operate in companies and what companies look for, who they keep, who they promote, and so on is changing. And you got to be open-minded about it, and part of that is understanding how can you actually reskill yourself, how can you continue to add to that toolbox of your professional career that will help you not only maintain relevance but also grow your role in the future, hopefully grow financially. This is what's going to make you different from every other person out there. Professionals who are actually building professionals that are actually building their careers intentionally and really are open minded and fluid throughout the work that they're doing and continuing to develop their skill set and position them correctly, these are the people that are going to own the next decade of their career.